Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Glad you're here. Hey, friendly reminder, please download our app in the App Store. Just search for The First TV. It'll pop right up, totally free. Every single show on demand, and everything's live. Jesse, me, Buck, who am I missing? Dana, of course. Everybody right there on The First TV's app. Please give that a download. So the latest is the LA County Public Health Director. So the Dr. Fauci of LA County, who has all the power, and at least this is the case in San Diego. Our county health director, Dr. Wooten, that's Dr. Ferrer in LA County. But they have all the power. So in San Diego, our county board has handed over all of their authority to this one unelected person. And this one person has all the ability to make all the decisions about whether or not we open up and what we do. And I think that's wildly inappropriate. She should be one voice of many who are presenting their case based on their expertise to a board that we should call, I don't know, the County Board of Supervisors. And they should make the ultimate decisions because they're elected by the people. We shouldn't just have one random doctor in charge of an entire county, especially San Diego County, which is as big as San Diego County is bigger than something like 20 states, which is crazy. Anyway, the LA Health Director, I should note this too. The LA Health Director, she got her undergraduate degree from UC Santa Cruz in community studies. Okay, community studies, whatever the heck that is. She got her PhD, because she's a doctor, you know. So, gotta bow down to her. She's a doctor. She got her PhD in, that would be social welfare from Brandeis University. Okay, let's be real. How is that even a thing? Okay, so there's your Dr. Ferrer. She makes a cool $500,000 a year from the government. Okay, makes $500,000 for doing what? Okay. She said yesterday, quote, with all certainty, the stay-at-home orders that are set to expire on Friday are going to be extended through July. So it's into August. So it's 3 more months. So just to be clear here, we were told 2 weeks, remember 15 days to flatten the curve. And now it's been a little over 2 months, and they're extending it now for another 3 months. So that was yesterday. The mayor of LA and a couple others in the county have come out and tried to do some damage control on what she said, but they just made the confusion way worse. The same thing in New York City. Cuomo said New York City may not fully open until August. The state, California, also yesterday released a 12-page document on mandates for restaurants in California. It's insane. We'll talk more about that one tomorrow. The Santa Clara, there's a doctor up in Santa Clara she's not the health director, but she's like one of the main doctors who championed the first round of shutdown up near San Francisco. She said, we're not there yet. The conditions really haven't changed in our county. We don't suddenly have a vaccine. We have exactly the same conditions we had in March. Yeah, same conditions. No one's arguing we have different conditions. Same conditions, but not the same knowledge. We know a lot more now. We still don't know a ton, but we know enough. And the most important thing is we're nowhere near that healthcare capacity line, again, which was the whole point of flattening the curve. You know all about this. Curve flattened, praise God. But now the new standard is wait until there's a vaccine. It's like, oh, well, we don't have a vaccine yet, so we can't leave the house. We don't have no vaccine. It's like, whoa, that's, and by the way, I'm over the vaccine, okay? It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Maybe they'll make one, but you're never gonna get 60, 70, 80% of the people to take it. Let me be more clear. Let's back it up. I'm over the testing. I'm over the tracing. I'm over the vaccine. They're not gonna happen. And listen, I don't know if there's anyone who's talked more about testing and tracing and vaccine development and the process and the intricacies. And we've talked about the technology with the tracing and the Google and Apple and Bluetooth versus GPS and how it all works and what the process and the testing. We did a whole segment about the magnets and the sensitivity of the tests and the reliability of the test and different. We went in crazy detail about all three of these things. And I've come to the working conclusion now, they're not gonna happen. Because not only do you need them to be invented and widespread, you need people to actually use it and do it. No one's gonna do it. Chris Cuomo, the CNN guy, not the governor, he did this whole blowhardy thing because the president the other day said, we've met the moment. And Chris Cuomo came back and said, oh, well, we haven't met the moment. We're still not testing, tracing. It's like, we got to be testing and tracing. You hear this all the time, test and trace, test and trace, test and trace. It can't happen. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Everyone's just saying it like they're saying something, but they're not saying anything. And listen, I hate to say this, but people need to accept this. It's not a thing. Testing and tracing, just cut it out already. It's not going to happen. So Melinda Gates, she held up Germany, as like this weekend, she held up Germany as the shining example of testing. So what percentage of people do you think Germany's tested? Take a guess. What percentage of, like she said, we need to be more like Germany. We need to test more like Germany. What percentage of people do you think they've tested in Germany so far? 50, 60, 70, 80% of people? 3%. 2.75 million tests. It's a country of like 87 million people. Now, maybe if you calculate like just adults, maybe it's not 3% of the adult population, maybe it's like 5 or 6% or whatever, but we're nowhere near. Paul Romer, the Nobel Prize winning economist, he said we need to do 20 million a day. Germany's done almost 3 million total. We need to do 20 million a day. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's fantasy. Can't happen. It was hard for me to accept this. I needed to be slapped across the face with it. Slater, it's not going to happen. I'd be like, no, we can do it. No, not going to happen. Oh, no, if we put our minds together and we really unite as a country. No, not going to happen. Maybe if there's a miracle, and if a miracle happens, I will welcome massive testing with open arms. But it is not anywhere within the realm of possibility. They're talking about how to open up Major League Baseball in July. And there's a whole system to it. Maybe one day we can talk more about it. But the players' union's like, nah, we can't do it. Probably can't do it. Like, how are we going to properly test the players and the support staff, like the umpires and the TV crews and stuff like that? I don't think we can properly test everybody enough. That's like a couple thousand people. And Major League Baseball's like, I don't think we can test a couple thousand people enough to make a difference, so it's probably not safe. That's a couple thousand, let alone 330 million. I wish we could do it. Can't. So you got to move on. We got to come up with a different solution. That's not a thing. You can't, God, test and trace. Not a thing. Think about it like this. If you're selling, let's say you work at a company, you guys are selling a product, you're selling phalanges, and you're the chief marketer, right? It's your job to figure out how to sell these things. And the CEO says, hey, listen, you gotta come up with a plan. You have 60 days, or two months and a week to come up with a plan. Okay, so you work hard, you come up with a plan. And the CEO says, all right, what's your plan? You say, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hire 1 million people to knock on every door in the neighborhood every day. And each person will knock on 10 doors. And they're gonna knock on 10 million doors every single day until that person buys this phalange from us, and then we'll promise to leave them alone. That's my plan. And the CEO says, no, that's never, no, we're not doing that. Can't happen, infeasible, can't happen. Oh, what do you mean it can't happen? That's the only plan there could possibly be. This is the plan. It's America, isn't it? We can do anything. We just gotta unite and do it. And your boss would be like, no, come up with something else. That plan can't happen. And that's what it is right now with tracing and tracking, or testing and tracing and vaccine. It's not a thing. Sometimes in life, you can't do the best plan, and you have to settle with a slightly lesser plan because the best plan is impossible. I think the best plan, I like this analogy. Now, I want to be clear here. I supported the initial shutdown. Not only did I support it, I still support it having been done. Make sense? So I don't even regret it. I still think it was necessary. I think it was the right thing to do. 15 days to flatten the curve. I think things were, and people can disagree on this, and that's fine. I think things were going exponential. I think we were on that ramp. I think if we didn't do anything, it would have been really bad. I still believe that was good, and we should have done it. So I would analogize that to a massive D-Day invasion. All right? We needed it. We needed a carpet bombing. We needed a big, huge land war. We needed boots on the ground. Now, it's time for a different strategy. Now we need guerrilla warfare, and we need it carried out by local militias. Very different than the original campaign. This is Daniel Klein. He's an economist at George Mason University. He said the guerrilla tactics are diverse. continually adjusted, even yet to be discovered. They include scouting for hotspots, testing and monitoring for symptoms, using protective equipment, social distancing, self-quarantining when appropriate, shielding the vulnerable, washing your hands, developing better therapeutics, allowing human challenge trials for vaccine development, and many other tactics. Notice how Mr. Klein here, notice how he didn't say, we do nothing. He didn't say, everyone just go back to normal and spit in each other's faces because there's no virus and it's all a hoax and this is all stupid. He's still in like the context of this being a war. It's just we need a different strategy. We need guerrilla tactics now. And there's so many like COVID hawks who are still calling for massive ground invasions against this enemy where that's no longer necessary or helpful. So you can either accept that reality and change the strategy, which is what I'm calling for. Like, oh, the enemy's changed. We know more now. Phase 1, good, done, executed, well done. Let's move on now to something different. Or you can just keep living in this fantasy land and keep dropping bombs and keep doing this massive ground invasion, which is causing more harm than good. I think you would think most people would agree with that by now. This is the LA health director who we started off with. She said, our hope is that by using the data, we'd be able to slowly lift restrictions over the next 3 months, but without widely available therapeutics, therapeutic testing for the coronavirus or rapid at-home tests that would allow people to test themselves daily, it seems unlikely that restrictions would be completely eased. Whoa. We're waiting for rapid at-home tests that we can use every day? When did that become the goalpost? That's not a thing. There is no rapid at-home test. So that's what we're gonna wait for? No. Nope. All right. So are you with me? When you hear people talk about their solutions, you have to ask yourself, is that a thing even? Is it a possibility? Because if it's not, you gotta move on. What's your next plan? Coming up next, we gotta talk about pride. This is what's gonna call our downfall. Pride is gonna call our downfall, not the virus. It's not the virus, it's not gonna be the shutdowns even per se. It's gonna be pride, which comes before the fall. I just made that, write that down. Pride comes before the fall. Ugh, unbelievable. What a great line. Write that down, make a bumper sticker. Pride comes before the fall. We'll talk about that next. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I want to share this Naval tweet to start things off. I can't tell if this is a deep thought or something that just sounds really deep. I'm not sure yet, but here it is. He said, if it hurts to hear it, look for the truth in it. If it comforts to hear it, look for the lie in it. Okay, so if it hurts to hear it, look for the truth in it. If it comforts to hear it, look for the lie in it. Pretty similar to the old cartoon where they have two booths set up and one is marked unpleasant truths and the other is marked comforting lies. And one of them has no line and the other has a line around the block because people want to hear comforting lies. It's a biblical truth, Proverbs 27:6, wounds from a friend can be trusted. Oh, I love that so much. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. So if a friend comes to you with a truth that's hard to hear, it'll cause a wound, but it's okay, it can be trusted. But an enemy multiplies kisses. That's so good. I love when there's lines in the Bible that like, you're like, what? How's that in there? Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. The enemy tells you what you want to hear. Imagine if we all had that perspective, right? Of tell me the truth. I want to know the truth so that I can confront it and move on and improve. A buddy of mine sent a text to a couple of us, and he literally said that. He said, guys, here's some things I'm working on in my life. Can you think of anything else? Is there anything else? Like, do I have a blind spot? He asked for blind spots. Super brave to do that. So obviously, we just crushed him. We just crushed his soul. We just piled on and just. Now we told him like in love, gave him an insight that we think we've seen in his life, and it was like super encouraging for everyone. It was great. But what if we could all do that? I didn't send a text back. I didn't say, oh yeah, by the way, what's wrong with me? It takes a lot of courage to do that. We don't, because we want our egos protected all the time. We want everything to stay just the way it is in our lives, never change a thing, never reassess anything, only have people and everyone around us tell us how wonderful we are and how perfect we're doing everything in every way. This is why sports, when you grow up, sports is so important because it teaches you two things. First, to be coachable in life, right? How to accept criticism, right? Your coach knows how to swing a baseball bat. You don't. You better figure that out and learn how to be coachable. And it teaches you how to lose. Those are both very unpleasant things. Like to have a coach say you're doing it wrong, that's not pleasant. And to lose a game, that's not pleasant, but they're necessary. Same thing with COVID. We only look for things that confirm our beliefs. We do a variant of that theme every single day. I wonder, actually, this is interesting. I wonder if California, New York, any of the states where it's bad right now, I guess. I wonder if they have anyone in the task force groups or whatever. I wonder if they have anyone in there who are there just to question everyone else. That's interesting. I wonder, like, if I was a leader of one of these groups, I would make sure I had a contrarian to every expert who is there that I support, right? So I'd want a public health expert who says we need to shut down everything forever, and I'd want another public health expert who, someone like someone who has a degree from Brandeis in, what was it? Not community. Sorry, what was it? It was community studies and social welfare. Okay, so I'd want someone, a real expert, like a doctor in social welfare, and then I'd want like a real doctor to counterpoint everything, and then have them fight it out, make their arguments better, and then give me whatever you guys can come up with, especially the things that you agree on. But I fear that governors surround themselves with people who agree with them only, which means they'll never course correct. Just be a bunch of yes men the entire time. I remember we made a pact, or I made one at least, and I hope you joined, to not judge actions, but to judge course corrections from our politicians moving forward. You don't necessarily need to judge actions, but judge the corrections afterwards. Admit errors and encourage people, politicians especially, to admit their errors. You're forgiven already, it's okay. Just make the correction as soon as possible. I'd like to think if I said something here that was just wrong, just like straight wrong, like what Chuck Todd did on Sunday with that Bill Barr interview, what Jimmy Kimmel did with that Mike Pence clip, were just like flat out, just deceitful lies. And if someone called me out for doing something like that, I'd like to think I'd be like, oh, man, I blew that. Really, I'm so sorry. Like my bias, like I wanted to believe this, so I didn't do the proper vetting of that, and I'm really sorry. Let me do some more research, and I'll find the truth, and I'll correct that right away. I'd like to think I do that. So many people I'd like to think I do that, but we'll never know because I'm right all the time. That's the problem. Just right. No one's ever corrected me about anything I've ever said ever, so I don't know how I would react. So many people get full of pride when they're called out for being wrong. And I want to give an example of that. Do you remember our shopping cart conversation yesterday? I got a ton of feedback from our shopping cart theory. So here's how the theory goes. Someone put this on 4chan of all places. Let me do it real quick. So the shopping cart is the ultimate litmus test for whether a person is capable of self-governing. To return the shopping cart is an easy, convenient task, and one which we all recognize as the correct, appropriate thing to do. To return the shopping cart is objectively right. There are no situations other than dire emergencies in which a person is not able to return their cart. If you use the cart through the store, and if you use the cart to get to your car, you can use the cart to put it back in the corral, okay? So people are like, oh, like I'm injured. It's like, well, no, you used it the whole time, or I'm busy. Well, you had enough time to do the... Simultaneously, it's not illegal to abandon your shopping cart. Therefore, the shopping cart presents itself as the apex example of whether a person will do what is right without being forced to do it. That's the key. No one will punish you for not returning the cart. There's no fine. No one's going to kill you or send you to jail for not returning the shopping cart. You gain nothing by returning the shopping cart. You must return the shopping cart out of the goodness of your own heart. You must return the shopping cart because it is the right thing to do. And a person who's unable to do this is no better than an animal, an absolute savage who can only be made to do what is right by threatening them with a law and the force that stands behind it. The shopping cart is what determines whether a person is a good or bad member of society. Okay, so that's the shopping cart theory, which I totally agree with. Now, we talked about that yesterday. People sent me this Facebook page called Cart Narcs. Okay? This guy, I spent way too much time on this Facebook page yesterday. This guy goes to grocery stores and he finds people who are not putting their carts back and he calls them out on it. We could play tons of examples. You could easily waste half an hour on this guy's Facebook page, no problem. Here's just one quick example of it.
Cart narcs here. That's not where you leave the cart, sir. That's just the curb over there. If I could roll away, hit somebody else's car.
It's pretty secure, man.
Wind can catch it. We see it all the time.
Do you work? Can I see your ID?
I'm worth the cart narcs.
No. Can I see your ID? You don't have authorization to video me.
Look, that's not the point. The point is the cart, not you. Sir, I gotta try. Try to get the pit maneuver in here. Might be hard. Sir, it's your cart. Sir, this is your cart. No, sir. Sir, it's your cart. Sir, I'm right here. Cart narcs, this is your cart. You left it where it could hit somebody, sir. Sir, hello? Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, that guy's gonna get shot one day. Like that's definitely, he will get shot one of these days. Skiddly wink 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 swim swim swim, and he usually goes lazy bones alert, lazy bones alert, sir. So that goes on for like 10 minutes, and the guy just lays on his horn like that. He just lays on it for like 30 seconds at a time, and people come over to find out what's going on, and then the cart narc explains, and everyone goes, oh, okay, good work, thanks for your help, and then they walk away. Isn't that great? So everyone's on the cart narc side. Like everyone comes over like all concerned, like what's going on here, guys? Come on. And he explains like, oh, he didn't put his shopping cart back. Oh, yeah, hey, come on, jerk, put the shopping cart back. And they're immediately against that guy and for the cart narc. Eventually, that guy shamefully gets out and puts his cart back. But I love these videos because I love watching the people and their reaction when they know they're wrong. That guy could have resolved all of this when the guy comes up and goes, skiddly wink wink wink, and the guy goes, hey, you didn't put your cart back. And he'd be like, I know. Sorry, that was wrong. That was lazy. That was dumb. I'll put it back. Sorry, thanks for calling me out. Right, and the whole thing would have been resolved. Instead, who are you? Show me your ID. You can't tell me what to do. And then lays on the horn, right? Just pride through the roof. Dan Crenshaw was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and they talked about people who don't put the shopping cart back. And Crenshaw said, why don't you put it away? And worse, if you don't put it away because you're in a rush or you have a good reason, right? Do you ask yourself the question, or I'm going to ask you the question, did you feel bad about it? So if you don't put it away, do you feel bad? Like that guy, he didn't put it away. Did he feel bad that he didn't put it away? And he said, if you don't feel bad about it, what the heck is wrong with you? And it's this bigger lesson from his new book, Fortitude, about shame. He says, you got to start small. So here's Joe Rogan's reaction. He says he doesn't just bring it back to the corral. He brings it all the way back to the front of the store. Skips the corrals, brings it all the way back. What a hero. Here's what he said.
I put it back in the thing right in front. Yes, I don't even put it in the stall. I walk those extra steps, and it doesn't take much time. But I feel like I did something, even if it's just a trick.
The grocery store doesn't even have to put those little sections out in the parking lot. They could just tell you to walk it all the way back to the door.
But the reason why I like the little stalls is because of people that do have kids. If there's a mom and she's got her baby with her, great. Give her a way out. Or hire some kid to gather those things up while people are walking out with them. Fine. But if you're just a guy and you're shopping for yourself and you don't put your cart back, and that sense of shame that you're talking about, that really is important. People need to feel shame if you've come up short like that, because you can do better. You can do better, and you should want to do better. The way to get the way to get ahead in life is to do everything that way. The way you do everything is the way you do anything. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. I mean, that's really what it is. If you just do the right thing, do it the way you're supposed to do it. You can do it, and you'll feel better. If you're supposed to get a workout in today, you're like, oh, I'd rather just sleep in. No, just get your up and do it, and you'll feel better. When it's done, you're like, damn, I did it. I can do this tomorrow too. You can, and it's momentum. And just developing that momentum, it's a skill. It's like everything else. It's like learning how to be polite. It's like learning how to be cordial, learning how to be a nice person. These are learned things. You can't just accept that you're a piece of shit and this is just the way you are. No, just look at yourself as if you were another person judging you. Like as if you are a person who's like a life coach judging you. What would you tell you to do?
That's exactly right.
So good. That clip right there inspired me to do hard things, like bring the shopping cart all the way back to the front of the store. I just got a vision of my grandpa, who was a paratrooper during World War II. My grandpa was alive. He'd say, "Son, what'd you talk about today?" I said, "Grandpa, you wouldn't understand. But we talked about doing hard things." I mean, you wouldn't get it, Grandpa, but I'm a hero because I'm going to return the shopping cart all the way to the front of the store. Otherwise, people need to feel shame because you can do better, and you should want to do better. You should want to do better, and the way you do everything is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. A classic line right there. Shame is something we need way more of in our culture. Shame is the same as pain, right? So where pain tells you something's not right, you put your hand on a hot stove, the pain tells you need to stop doing that. Shame is the same thing. Prevents us from damaging our relationships, motivates us to repair our lives. Shame is the pain inside of you. It's telling you this is wrong. I can do better. I should do better. Now, of course, there's productive shame and toxic shame, of course, all that. Listen, I share all this because as different governors decide to take their states in different directions, the states are they're gonna become even more divergent because there's gonna be so much pride involved. Once a governor, like Gavin Newsom, goes in a direction, they're not gonna wanna course correct ever. Even in the face of all the evidence that they should. No one will want to, because that would mean they have to admit that they were wrong. And instead, they're gonna react like that guy in the car who didn't turn his cart back. And be like, oh, who are you to say? What do you know? Get out of here, lay on the horn, and it's just gonna be that the whole way. They're never gonna turn around. They're never gonna admit they were wrong. It's gonna be pride before the fall all the way to the end. And that's the most dangerous aspect of human nature in this entire pandemic. People who won't admit they were wrong. I'll leave you again with this C.S. Lewis quote. It's one of his best. He says, we all want progress, but progress means getting nearer, not just going forward, but getting nearer to the place where you want to be. And if you've taken a wrong, so in this context, like, where's the place we want to be? All right, we want to be at a place where people are safe enough to go out and we can open up the economy again, okay? Not just forward, but and I think we're at that place, by the way. If you've taken a wrong turn, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you're on the wrong road, progress means turning around and walking back to the right road. And in that case, the man who turns back the soonest is the most progressive. There's nothing progressive about being pig-headed and refusing to admit a mistake. Pride before the fall. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So this clip got a lot of play yesterday. It was trending on Twitter. People making fun of Rand Paul because here he is questioning a doctor. Can you believe a stupid senator questioning a doctor and not realizing that he is also a doctor? And you'd be like, well, he's an eye doctor. And like, well, that's more than the LA health director who's like, what is it again? I keep forgetting. A doctorate in social work or something. Like, no, not a doctor. Anyway, I don't mind this exchange at all. I think they're both right. And I hope more people can leave this whole COVID experience, whatever this even is, with the understanding that being able to find the merits in two different arguments. Now, that's always been a virtue, right? But I hope more so now. Because I agree with both of these men, but we're so like tribal, like one's gotta be right, one's gotta be wrong, one's gotta school the other. Let's play this clip. So it's Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci. By the way, did you watch any of the questioning yesterday? It was all very like Star Wars Galactic Senate feeling, right? Like the big table, everyone's super spaced out with things over their faces. like over the computers, and the sound was all screwed up, right? Like the microphones were all screwed up. So it seemed the whole thing was very unsettling. But anyway, here's the clip.
Much as I respect you, Dr. Fauci, I don't think you're the end all. I don't think you're the one person that gets to make a decision. We can listen to your advice, but there are people on the other side saying there's not going to be a surge and that we can safely open the economy, and the facts will bear this out. But if we keep kids out of school for another year, what's going to happen is the poor and underprivileged kids who don't have a parent that's able to teach them at home are not going to learn for a full year. And I think we ought to look at the Swedish model, and we ought to look at letting our kids get back to school. I think it's a huge mistake if we don't open the schools in the fall. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that, even though there are only 32 seconds left?
Yes, and you might make it clear whether or not you suggested that we shouldn't go back to school in the fall.
Well, first of all, Senator Paul, thank you for your comments. I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. I'm a scientist, a physician, and a public health official. I give advice according to the best scientific evidence. There are a number of other people who come into that and give advice that are more related to the things that you spoke about the need to get the country back open again and economically. I don't give advice about economic things. I don't give advice about anything other than public health. So I wanted to respond to that. The second thing is that you use the word we should be humble about what we don't know. And I think that falls under the fact that we don't know everything about this virus. And we really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children, because the more and more we learn, we're seeing things about what this virus can do that we didn't see from the studies in China or in Europe. For example, right now, children presenting with COVID-19 who actually have a very strange inflammatory syndrome, very similar to Kawasaki's syndrome. I think we better be careful if we are not cavalier in thinking that children are completely immune to the deleterious effects. So again, you're right in the numbers that children in general do much, much better than adults and the elderly, and particularly those with underlying conditions. But I am very careful and hopefully humble in knowing that I don't know everything about this disease, and that's why I'm very reserved in making broad predictions. Thank you.
Yeah. So Rand Paul's right. Dr. Fauci's not the end all. He's not the one person who gets to make all the decisions. He's right about that. And shouldn't be the one person. Rand Paul's right that if we keep kids out of school, that's not good for a lot of kids. And Rand Paul's right that we should be looking at best practices from other countries. He's totally right about all that. Dr. Fauci's right, too, that he only speaks on public health matters, gives advice only on that issue. He doesn't, through his brain, he doesn't filter the economic variables, and he shouldn't. He just does his thing, and then the economist, and then the president synthesizes all the information to make the best call. He's also right that we don't know the full effect that this has on kids. Remember, we had Professor Rackaniello on, the Columbia University virologist, every Monday, and he said we should not open up like tomorrow. We shouldn't open up too soon. We need more data. Got to wait a couple months to get that data to see if it's the right move in the fall. So we'll see how things are looking then. And we should be careful with the effect that this has on kids. Now, obviously, all the arguments on Twitter are like, Fauci schooled Paul. Who could vote for this idiot, blah, blah, that stuff. No, both are right. Find the merits in both. And find the balance of it all. But even epidemiologists have to understand that at a point, other factors have to be weighed. I want to share something from George Washington. So it was General Washington at the time. This was January 29th, 1778. So they were in Valley Forge. So the Revolutionary War is just getting started. Things are not going well for the colonists. There was a Continental Congressman, his name was Francis Dana. I don't know if it's Dana or Dana. So him and 4 other men were sent by the Congress to go visit the general, really to fire him. They were looking for a good reason to fire General Washington. Because in September, so a couple months before this, the British took over Philadelphia, and Washington tried to retake the city and couldn't. 12,000 men were spending the winter in Valley Forge, which was just 18 miles away. 2,000 soldiers died from disease and starvation. It was horrible. Things were not going well. So this group of 5 guys stayed for 3 months at the camp to see what was going on. There was another Continental Congressman at the time who said the purpose of the trip was to wrap a demigod over the knuckles. George Washington, wrap a demigod over the knuckles and fire him. So at the end of this, Washington gave the congressman a 16,000 word letter about how to reform the military and hopefully win the war. And at the end of this, Washington was able to convince these 5 men that he could still win the war. And all those men switched over to supporting him by the end of their visit. It's a long letter, obviously. It's 16,000 words. Amazing letter. You should read the whole thing. But I just want to read this one part here that I think is very relevant to what's going on here. So one of the arguments Washington makes is that we need to pay these soldiers a pension. So Sam Adams, on the other side, thought that true revolutionists should be motivated by virtue only. No need for pensions for these guys because they know what they're really fighting for and we don't need to pay them a pension. So here's what Washington wrote. He said, a small knowledge of human nature will convince us that with far the greatest part of mankind, personal interest is the governing principle, and that almost every man is more or less under its influence. Motives of public virtue may for a time or in particular instances actuate men to the observance of a conduct purely disinterested, right? So maybe for a short period of time, people will do things that are maybe against their best interest at the time. But they are not of themselves sufficient to produce a persevering conformity to the refined dictates and obligations of social duty. Few men are capable of making a continual sacrifice of all views of public interest, all views of private interest or advantage to the common good. It is in vain to exclaim, to freak out against the depravity of human nature on this account. Like you can complain that this is the reality all you want, but it's in vain. You can be like, oh, I wish people weren't this way, it's outrageous. Well, it's the way it is. The fact is so. The experience of every age and nation has proved it, and we must in great measure change the constitution of man before we can make it otherwise. And he goes on and on. That's just a part of that section. He says, in the beginning, people joined this cause without promise of a pension because they were all in, right? And it was great. But that goodwill can only last for so long. And the general said, people are giving up, people are not doing their duty, people are wanting to go home, and can you blame them? Because at best, we win the war and their families are destitute forever. At worst, they die and their families are destitute forever. So of course, their hearts aren't going to be all the way in it unless we appeal to their personal interest and we pay these guys a pension. He wanted each soldier to get half pay for the rest of their life. And in the end, he ended up getting half pay for 7 years after the war. Anyway, the point is, human nature says people will only, and George Washington knew this, that human nature says that people will only do the right thing for the right thing, right? The common good thing for so long before they just won't anymore. All right, this guy, George Washington, who had 3 years of formal schooling, knew that the experience of every age and nation proved his point on human nature. And I go back to my point that the word quarantine literally is Italian for 40 days. I think that's all you can expect out of people. 40 days is about all the goodwill you'll get, unless it's shockingly obvious that everyone needs more, right? Like if you walked outside the door and you breathed in the air and choked and died, then you wouldn't even need to have all this conversation about what to do or what not to do, right? But it's not that obvious that everyone needs to stay home right now. Maybe one day again it'll be in the future. Maybe in the fall it'll be like, oh geez, we got to get back in. But you can't expect people to forego their entire livelihoods, or in the words of Washington, their continual sacrifice of all private interest. You can't expect people to do that forever or until your governor says it's okay to provide for your family again. Let me end with this quote. This is Patrick Fletchell. He says, you may be able to get everyone to suspend personal responsibilities to the benefit of all for a short while, but people will inevitably be compelled to take care of the needs of themselves and their family. To claim this behavior is selfish or ignorant is pointlessly cruel. It's human nature. And to ignore this fact is disastrous to a nation's future. We have either hit the wall or are approaching the limit for almost everyone, unless you're older or have health risks or whatever. Of course, it's a different calculus. But for almost everyone else, we've about hit a wall, and politicians need to understand the limits of human nature. George Washington did. So let's wear masks when appropriate, keep a distance where appropriate, be kind and patient, and go get your hair cut, and go to the store, and go eat. Mike Slater, true story. More coming up. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So, we've talked, we've vaguely mentioned from time to time this idea of becoming a Jedi master of consuming the news. I need to do a full-on segment on this and what this means in its entirety, but the gist of it is never being swayed, like you, consumer of news, must never be swayed by sensational headlines or deceiving pictures, right? When you consume the news, your emotions are never taken for a ride. You're never manipulated. Instead, your brain, instead of going to a place, like instead of making movies about things you see or read, your brain immediately asks questions. You never let the propaganda get the upper hand over you. So I'm not there yet. I'm pretty good at this when it comes to pictures. I can see a picture or a video, and my brain immediately starts asking questions before it makes any judgments. Just last week, the picture of the guy in Georgia who was shot, it was such a short clip, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who took it? What happened before? Who was that guy? I was immediately asking questions before I was like, oh, you don't come to any conclusions. No conclusions. It's hard to do that, though. So I'm pretty good with pictures and video. Well, until what I'm going to share in a second, but I'm good with pictures. I'm not there with headlines yet. I could still read a headline and it still sways me. Even after, I feel like every day we debunk some headline or we share a story where the headline says one thing and then you read the article and then you find the actual study that the article's about and they're exact opposite. It's not even like they're slightly off or like maybe like a word. It's like the totally different conclusions, opposite conclusions. I feel like we share stories like that every day and certainly every week. And still, I get manipulated by headlines from time to time. Another thing that is easily manipulative are short clips. This is what got Chuck Todd in trouble the other day. I don't think we ended up talking about this on the show, but let's just play this real quick. This is, he's talking about Bill Barr, the Attorney General. He's like, oh, can you believe what Bill Barr said? Sorry, he said, can you believe what Bill Barr said? And then he played this clip right here.
By asking all the moms to...
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
I was struck, Peggy, by the cynicism of the answer.
All right, we're gonna stop there. Did you see Bill Barr's mouth still moving? Right, so Chuck Todd, we're not gonna do the whole thing because it doesn't matter, but Chuck Todd goes on this whole can you believe he said this? And he never mentioned anything about the rule of law and unbelievable, the Attorney General, blah, blah, blah. But he cut off the answer. Chuck Todd makes the opposite judgment of what Bill Barr actually said in the rest of the sentence that they cut off. So hopefully now when you see a short clip of something, you're like, wait, hold on, no. What was the question? And what was the rest of the answer before you make any judgment? And Chuck Todd got fooled by just that short clip. But that was such an obvious one because his lips were still moving. Is there any way, guys, can we play it again by any chance? Can we play that one more time just to see their lips moving? So you know there was more coming still.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
I was struck, Peggy, by the cynicism of the answer.
So no curiosity of what was the rest of the sentence? Another little TV trick. When you're watching like 60 Minutes or a pre-recorded interview, they'll have the camera on the person asking the questions, and then they'll cut over to the person answering. And then every once in a while, they'll just run a B-roll. B-roll is like background video or something. Or they'll cut back to the person, the interviewer, and the interviewer's like, yes. Whenever they do that, they did that because they edited out something that the guy was saying, that the interviewee was saying. So they need to cut away in order to do that. So when you're watching like a 60 Minutes or something, if they show the person being interviewed and then they cut away in the middle of the answer, they cut something off there. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. You just keep showing the person being interviewed. All right? So just be aware of stuff like that. Similar there. So anyway, I share that because I got tricked this weekend. I got fooled. And I want to admit where I failed here. Yeah, I'll just play the clip. This is the clip. This is the clip. I saw this on Sunday. I saw this clip.
By asking all the moms to step out of the room for a minute so I can talk to your kids. I'll give you a second. Okay.
That's the Prime Minister of Canada looking a little disheveled. And I saw that on Sunday. It's 9 seconds or something, right? And I saw that, my mind immediately went, right, like, look at Trudeau usurping parental authority, telling parents to leave the room so that he can brainwash kids one-on-one. Don't you dare tell me to leave my kids alone with you, you sicko. What are you, some kind of pervert? My brain went there. And I saved it, and I was like, I'm gonna come back to this on Monday. So I came back to it on Monday, I watched it again, I got mad again. And I said, I wonder what the rest of the clip was. I wonder what else he said after that. So I found it. Here's what Trudeau said. He said, I want to close by asking all the moms to step out of the room. Again, the pervert doing his thing here, grooming children. Okay, I'll give you a second. Okay. Tomorrow's Mother's Day, kids. It's a special day for all the people who are mothers to us. So let's show them how much we love and care about them. You might want to wake up early and make them breakfast and ask your dad to get some flowers. Whatever you do, I'm sure what you do will make her day and express how much you love her and how much she has your support and love during this difficult time. So you just wanted to encourage kids to say Happy Mother's Day? That's different than what I thought you were doing. Sorry I called you a pervert, Prime Minister. I didn't know where you were going. We're going with that. So I let my emotions get the best of me there with a 9-second clip. And if you do that, you're going to get yourself in trouble. The question is, how much of our reaction to COVID right now, every day, is based on pride, which we did 2 segments ago, pride and emotions. Put those two together, not going to end well. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.